on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. All these Democrat socialists around the country are running around comparing themselves to Florida. They think favorably. We spent the last couple years hearing both Jelly Belly and Triple Threat doing it in Illinois. Gavin Newsom is running commercials, run commercials in Florida, touting California as the real state of freedom.
And then
over the Sunshine State.
The irony is that his in-laws move out of California to Florida because of the draconian measures he took during the lockdowns.
Well, we know we're going to have one presidential candidate from Florida. That would be Governor Ron DeSantis. But there may be a second. And no, it's not Senator Rick Scott. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, who's a Republican, he was on with Brian Kilmeade the other day at Fox, as Brian Kilmeade, talking about his consideration to be, I don't know, he's like, I think he's auditioning to either be president or at least be America's mayor because of what's happening in Florida. That's also benefiting Miami. And this was on the occasion of Miami being ranked by some outfit as the #1 tech center for Gen Z employees. And Miami is booming, there's no question. But so is the whole state of Florida. And it was interesting, too, because so the mayor of Miami, Republican, is going to run against Ron DeSantis, Republican, going to run against Donald Trump, Republican, and everybody's from Florida. Francis Suarez making his case and throwing some shade on DeSantis. They've got a bit of an icy relationship.
Well, he seems to struggle with relationships generally. I mean, I look people in the eye when I shake their hands. You had mentioned earlier in the program that he doesn't get along with the governor. He's had a real struggle with the Florida congressional delegation, most of which are supporting the former president. There was an article last night that talked about the fact that he wasn't even calling people personally, that his fundraiser was the one, or his, I think, pollster was the one that was calling congressional leaders for support. I think it was Vern Buchanan that came out in the Washington Post last night. I'm comfortable being a retail politician. I'm comfortable talking to people. I just came back from New Hampshire. Before that, I was in South Carolina and Iowa and Nevada. And these are states that are approximately the size of Miami-Dade County. And, you have to be able to be comfortable.
And you don't think he's a good one-on-one politician. But now, so if you feel as though you're a better politician than the governor, how are you better than the former president?
Well, I think you have to be able to connect with people. I think in terms of the former president, I really believe in generational leadership. And I don't mean that as a buzzword. I think a lot of candidates are throwing that around as a buzzword. I think you get a 30 to 40-year improvement in a public official. I saw it in Miami. And it's important when you have this hyper-competitive landscape where China and the Middle East is rising and China is becoming a greater and greater threat. And you have technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing that are going to define the next generation. We need public officials that understand these technologies, understand how to take advantage of these opportunities, and also how to regulate them for our country's benefit.
Well, I mean, it's nice to have a mayor of a big city in America that's Republican, that never gave in to the defund the police silliness, and is approaching governance of his city with the idea, let's make Miami a magnet for next generation businesses. That's all good, but that's a big jump though for Francis Suarez to believe that he can hold court with DeSantis and Trump. But a
lot of people haven't even know who he is.
Well, sure, but you got a bunch of candidates running that are one percenters. You think Asa Hutchison is a household name? I can tell you it's not. All right, let's get some perspective on. I don't know. Does the Republican nomination ultimately, will it run through Florida? Could it? Could that possibly be? For more on this, please be joined by Dave Seminara, also a Florida resident. All the cool people are. He's a former diplomat. He's the author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And I am also a former resident of Illinois, too.
Oh,
Yeah,
where'd you live?
There you go.
I lived in a few different places in the Chicago suburbs.
All right.
Undisclosed locations.
He moves around. He's a
Okay.
former diplomat.
All right,
You're on a need-to-know basis. He's got.
I
He's
lived
probably
in
got-
Illinois before they were handing out. I lived in Evanston before they were handing out reparations. I lived in River Forest, and I lived in a couple places. I lived in Wrigleyville. I lived all over the place.
Wow.
I lived in Illinois 3 different times.
Did you leave any classified documents in any of the places in which you lived?
I probably did, but I'm waiting for Wednesday, which is when Asa Hutchinson announces his presidential candidacy, to drop that in the news, because I know that's going to be so massive, Asa's announcement, that
Who?
I can just drop that out there, and that'll squash everything else. I'm going to release that on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Biden's going to supposedly announce his reelection bid via a video on Tuesday. So
Oh my God!
I
That's
hope
gonna
he
be
doesn't
exciting,
steal
isn't it?
Hutchinson's thunder. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to be exciting, isn't it? But yeah, I like how you calling them the 1%ers. Can I use that in my columns? The
Sure you can.
1%ers? That's good.
Yeah, sure you
I like
can.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, just
all those
the
1%, all those
attribution.
1% add up though when there's like 20 of them, right? If you're Ron DeSantis,
They
this
add
stuff
up
is
to
all playing
20.
right into Trump's hands.
Yeah.
If there's 20 different guys and they all have 1 or 2%, well then guess what? Donald Trump is the nominee. That's his path to the nomination.
Well, yeah, but those 1%ers, most of them won't have the cash to make it to the Iowa caucus. Sort of like
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, exactly, Kamala Harris. But what about the idea with all this action going on in Florida, Trump and DeSantis, and now, I mean, Suarez, this is a reach right now, but
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, he's a young, talented politician. Who knows what could happen if he could put some cash together? But what about that? The idea that the Republican nomination runs through Florida and not the general election anymore because it's a red state.
Well, two things about this. First of all, I have to laugh, listening to Suarez's comments there. We're hearing this everywhere now, that the media, the liberal media, is really, training its guns on DeSantis now, even more so than they have been during the pandemic. And it's so funny now to hear what an awful politician he is from just every quarter now coming from Francis. The man just won re-election by 20 points, and he's just a terrible politician.
Terrible retail politician. Nobody likes him.
Anything right, and he just won by 20 points. Okay, great. Let's look at the scoreboard, Francis Suarez. Scoreboard, buddy. Anyways, regarding the nomination running through Florida, I don't know about running through Florida, but the GOP contest will be a referendum on Florida, right? And then if DeSantis is the nominee, then the general election will be a referendum on Florida because he's promised to make America Florida, right? So that is his unofficial campaign motto. So Trump is already, you've seen Trump already hitting Florida, weirdly enough, saying that Florida's a crime-ridden state. Florida is a state that has terrible education.
Yeah.
Florida is a state that performed more poorly than New York. New York did better than Florida during the COVID. Charlie Crist was a wonderful governor. On and on and on. So, I mean, even Trump is hitting his own state that he lives in. It's awful, right? So it is. It's about Florida, isn't it? It's all about Florida.
Well, and those assertions, no matter who they come from, are all evidence-free assertions. I mean, the COVID stuff that's often bandied about is so easily disproven.
Yeah, and interestingly enough about all those assertions, too, that Trump made about Florida, is that no one fact-checked them, right? The media loves fact-checking Trump whenever he makes a spurious claim. No one fact-checked any of those. And PolitiFact, which is based here in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live, didn't touch them, even though they love fact-checking Trump. And they're based here in Florida. They didn't bother to fact-check any of that stuff.
Oh, something else, too, that's going on where Trump has decided to throw in with Bob Iger. So the DeSantis showdown with Disney, and Disney is playing games with DeSantis to try to get around his reinstallation of municipal governance over Disney as opposed to Disney being their municipal governor. And Trump is now throwing in with woke Disney, Disney that don't say gay this and that at the same. But this is sort of Trump's. I don't know. He gets away with it better than most politicians. He can, do a speech, do a rally where he talks about I'm going to end CRT and I'm going to end gender ideology in K through 12, and then he can turn right around if his political opponent is doing the same fight and effectively against a popular target for conservatives because of their behavior, Disney, then he throws right back in with Disney because, Ron DeSantis, this is just a big stunt and it's a waste of time and so on and so forth.
Right. I don't think, politics, who said politics makes strange bedfellows? I don't know who coined that phrase, but it certainly does, doesn't it? The Disney stuff, that doesn't surprise me as much, Trump trying to hit him on that. But all of the stuff about, this being a crime-ridden state, this being a state with horrible education, and New York doing better with COVID and stuff, even by Trump standards, all of those diatribes surprised me a little bit.
What's your perspective on DeSantis as a Florida resident, and the job he's done here and the ability he would have to scale the job he did here if you think he did a good job? Scaling is a second question. In terms of the job that he's done here, he's done a fantastic job here. When he came into office in 2018, there were 300,000 more Democrats than Republicans in the state. Now the Republicans have a hair under 600,000 voter registration advantage. Swing of 900,000 voters in a span of 4 years, and not all of that is people moving from liberal states to here. There's a lot of people here in the state who are independents or Democrats who have become Republicans because of him. I think he's done a fantastic job. Now, the problem with scaling is I think he'd be a great president. I'm certainly supporting him. But the scaling is an issue here because he's been able to pass an unbelievable amount of legislation here. He's gotten a ton of stuff done, but because he's had a significant Republican majority. So if he came into office, as our president in 2024, but without, any sort of a majority in Congress, obviously it'd be much, much more difficult to get as much done. So it would have to be quite a red wave in order for him to scale up and ramp up replicate what he's done here in Florida. All right. He is Dave Seminara. He is a former diplomat, former Illinois resident, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
And Amy, using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Barbecue, bags, and brews on the driveway sounds great about now, but are you ready to entertain on that dirty, oil-stained area you call your backyard? Why bother putting up the party lights in the garage when it'll only highlight the oil spills and stains